You're now looking at the frontals of the two houses because it clearly was two houses. Were they built at the same time? Some say yes, some say no. Why were there two? And did separate families live in them? Or was the one on my right the larger rooms for functions and guests to sleep, etc.? And the one on the left, my left, was the family's house. Doesn't quite work when you're inside, but it's an interesting question because the designs are very different. The architecture is different significantly on the two.
As you will see from the photograph, there are a fine pair of gateposts at the entrance to Parkfield House grounds. These gateposts were taken when Torbay House was demolished. Torbay House stood where the View Cinema complex now stands. As you can see, there are also gates. The gates no longer exist, but the gateposts do. It would be interesting to know who actually had them moved. All the occupants of Parkfield House.
We're now standing outside the front of Parkfield House, where the conservatory used to be. All that remains of the conservatory is the floor and the shadow of the roof visible on the wall. This was built, we think, for the Cooper sisters, one of whom was a very keen gardener, and rumour has it that she exhibited at Chelsea.
As you came into Parkfield today, you will have walked across both a set of tiles in the entranceway and then across the mosaics inside the main door. We have been told these are Victorian, therefore they were put in a long time ago, maybe when that part of the house was built. If anyone has any knowledge or experience of dating tiles and mosaics, we'd be very pleased to know. This photograph is one example of a fireplace in Parkfield. Parkfield House, virtually every room has a fireplace, some more grand, but they're all different. So as you walk round rooms in Parkfield, have a look at the fireplaces. We think they're dated around 1900.
We are now in Parkfield House's panel room, for the obvious reasons, with oak panelling round the walls. It was, we think, the dining room when this was a private house. And one of the clues to why we think it was the dining room is over here. Is the hatch to the kitchen. It's the only room that has a hatch, so we're pretty sure that that's what this room was used for. We're now in the kitchen. You will see behind me a very elderly kitchen range from T.L. Harding and Sons. It is dated, we believe, to around 1900. We haven't tested it to see if it works still, because if you turn round, you will see you have a modern kitchen, oven, microwave, coffee making machine, etc. The interesting thing, of course, is this is the only kitchen in the two buildings. Having it seen from the outside that there were two buildings, this is the only kitchen. So what did the other people do to feed?
This photo shows the panel outside the kitchen door of bells that would have rung when some member of the family wished attention and wanted someone to come and help them. Interesting because it was clearly an electric bell system, not just some sort of random pulley system. Again, we don't know who installed this, and there is no evidence of where the bells were, where the bell pulls were upstairs. Anyone who has any information, we'd be pleased to know.
This is known as the billiard room, and if you look towards the ceiling, you will see what was originally a light fitting which came down over the snooker table. The display cabinets, currently full of books that have been donated to Parkfield in the last few months, was originally used by the Cooper family for storing taxidermy models and i.e. stuffed animals and treasures that their father had brought back from South Africa. As he was a very wealthy man, Mr. Cooper, there is over here a door, a white door, which is the door to the safe room. It has a large safe, which of a commercial size, which was used undoubtedly to store the material that he used, as he was an inventor as well as a businessman. Okay. This is perceived to be a Victorian window, stained glass window. We don't know who produced it, but it has been here a long time. And if you look up towards the ceiling, you will see original coving design from the middle of the 19th century. And interestingly, places to hang on tapestries or wall hangings. Here is one of the mysteries of Parkfield House. Because we're standing in one half, and through this strange window here is the other half. We don't know when they were joined. There are conflicting stories about when these two houses were joined. There are conflicting stories about when they were both built. Was one in the 1820s and one in the 1860s, or were both of them in the 1820s? Very difficult to tell, and so far impossible to prove, but there are lots of opinions floating about. And it finishes up with this strange window, which looks as though it could have been an external window. But external onto what? Here we have a wonderful example of a very old toilet and bath. You don't get many this design. It's clearly been here a long time. Just look at the taps, etc. And we have the question, the elderly ladies who lived here, how did they get in and out the bath? We are now at the top of the house, where there are 3 attic rooms, of which this is one. Out of this window, you can see the walled garden, and beyond to the other Parkfield building. That way, out the other window, you can see the travel lodge, the back of the travel lodge, just round the corner. This is not grand, this is where the servants would have slept, dressed and probably rested. That's why we don't have a grand fireplace. But they did get quite a decent cupboard space. Behind this wall are still existing horse stalls, pony stalls. They're obvious, and you can see from the upper level where the hay is stored. There is still a channel to take it down into the mangers in the 2 stalls. Working to the right, the big double doors would have been where the horses went in to get to the stalls, and where the trap or carriage would have been stored. It is now being used as a bicycle restoration project. And above the double doors, those 2 windows suggest that this was a living space, presumably for the groom. Behind me in the grounds is the garden house. I call it the garden house because it is a listed building, grade 2 listed, and it was listed as the garden house. It was also known in the amount of documentation that we have as the poison store. The 2 sisters who lived here were taxidermists for a hobby, and this is where they did it. And that's why it was called the poison store, because taxidermy uses nasty chemicals. It's 2 levels, and then still inside you can see, and the upper floor was used not that long ago by Torbay Council Parks and Gardens looks as though it was one of the places they stored pots and did potting. The upper level, the ground level, is just a store.
We recognise that for a long time after the death of Miss Cooper, that Torbay Council's Parks and Gardens division used greenhouses, extensive greenhouses on this site. And we would be very interested to talk to any involved in getting Torbay Council's Parks and Gardens Department gold medals at Chelsea, we believe.
Towering above me is one of the few remaining Torbay elms. Torbay had a variety of elm tree that didn't suffer from Dutch elm disease. Some of you may remember a roundabout near the Grand Hotel, which is now a complex traffic light system, and it had a Torbay elm in the middle, which they cut down to do the traffic improvements, but this one still exists. I am now standing on the dipping platform for the pond. Unfortunately, pondweed has overtaken it, but there is a stream that runs through the grounds and feeds this pond, but it's a major project to get it back in healthy working order. The story is that it's fed by a spring which rises under someone in Lower Polsham Road's kitchen floor, as yet unconfirmed.
It's so frustrating.
We have come out of the back gate of Parkfield onto Lower Polsham Road, and I'm standing outside the cottage that is now called Hydrina, and was the home of the gardeners who were employed by the residents of Parkfield.